Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has extended an invitation to Chinese leader Xi Jinping to visit Kyiv. Speaking to reporters from the Associated Press, Zelenskyy said that Kyiv was ready and willing to host Xi. He added that the pair had not talked since Russia's invasion. The invitation comes after the Chinese leader met with Vladimir Putin in Moscow on what Xi called a peace mission last week. Beijing has said that lines of communication with Ukraine remain open. Well, for more, let's bring in DW correspondent Max Tsanda, who's in Kyiv for us. Max, Zelenskyy says that he is ready to meet China's President Xi Jinping. What can the Ukrainian president expect from a meeting with Xi?
Right, you just said it, Terry. The Chinese President Xi Jinping went to Moscow last week in an attempt to deepen the ties with Moscow to solidify the no-limit partnership between Beijing and Moscow. So everybody was watching closely. What does this mean? Are the Chinese siding with the Russians? Are they perhaps preparing to send weapons? But the Chinese president left without any public support for the war. So there are indications that this was not a diplomatic success that Vladimir Putin was hoping for. So the Ukrainians are likely hoping that China is not looking for an eye-level partnership with the Russians, rather using the Russians for their own economic and geopolitical interests, and that perhaps now is the time to sit down and talk to the Chinese and try to find a way to influence the situation before Russia deepens its ties with China or other countries like Iran, for example, that it has friendly connections with.
There have been reports, Max, this morning that Ukrainian forces have shelled the Russian-controlled Ukrainian city of Melitopol in the south. What are you hearing from there?
That's right. So Melitopol in the Zaporizhzhia region has been occupied since February 25th last year, so the very first and second day of the start of the war. So what we're hearing from out of that occupied city essentially is that early this morning explosions rang out, and both the Russians and the Ukrainian side are saying that the Ukrainians targeted a train hub. And that's interesting because this is a train depot which acts as a hub. From here by rail, the Russians can send supplies and troops to all over the occupied region. So there was also some chatter this morning in some Telegram groups that this may be the beginning of a counteroffensive, a Ukrainian one. It appears that is not, but this is something that everybody's waiting for at the moment, that's been watched very closely. And this could be a strategic point where the Ukrainians at some point could attack in order to disconnect Crimea from the other occupied territories in the east, from the Donbas region. But it's a bit too early to speculate about that. We'll find out when that is the case, whenever that may be.
Max, thank you very much. Our correspondent Max Chanda in Kyiv.